was back in 1965, and I had just left the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York. And I was in private practice, and one of my clients was a company that was distributing closed circuit of boxing in big events. And they were doing a fight between Ernie Terrell and George Chavallo, and it wasn't doing very well. And they asked me what they could do to get some attention to their venture. And this is back in 1965, not so long ago. And I told them, let's have a black guy as a commentator on the telecast. Now, this is 1965, during my lifetime, and there had never been a black person on a telecast of a sporting event or a news event. I mean, Mike would be interested in that because he, like so many other of the commentators, happen to be people of color now. But in '65, that wasn't the case. And I was assigned the task of finding somebody to be a commentator. And through a mutual friend, I met Jim Brown. And he was hired as a commentator for the princely sum of $500. And after the fight, I went to dinner with Jim, and he told me, you shouldn't be the lawyer for these people. You should be a promoter. And I said, well, you know, I'd never seen a boxing match before. And the only one that was worth even bothering with was Muhammad Ali. And I said, he's taken. And Jim said, no, he isn't. I'll arrange for a meeting with Ali. And a month later, I was in my office in New York, and Jim called me, and he said, Ali is in a hotel suite in New York and wants to see us. So with Jim, I went over to meet with Ali and his advisors, and before I knew it, I was the promoter of Muhammad Ali. And we formed a company called Main Battle. And the first fight we were to do was to be in Chicago. And within about a month after announcing the fight, Ali's draft status changed from not being eligible to go into the Army, because at that point in time, even though he was a high school graduate, the schools in Louisville were so great that Ali couldn't read or write, and so obviously couldn't pass the test that he was provided. They reclassified him 1A. And that's when Ali said, I'm not going to go into the Army. I got nothing against the Viet Cong. And we were really in trouble because we got thrown out of Chicago where the fight was going to be held. And no city in the United States would accept the fight. And obviously I had no experience. But Jim was there constantly. Don't give up. Don't give up. We'll find a way. And we went to Montreal, out of the country. And we signed a contract to do the fight at the Forum in Montreal. But then the mayor of Montreal said, you can't do the fight here because he was threatened by the American Legion that they were going to do in Montreal a World's Fair, and they were going to boycott him. So somehow we ended up in Toronto, and the owner, or half owner of the Toronto team and building had to buy out his partner in order to get the fight on. And we did the fight, and that launched our company, Main Battle. And then we promoted some fights for Ali. We first took him out of the country, and then in the United States. And all the while, I was working for a way to save the situation with Ali because his criminal indictment was coming. And I was fortunate enough to meet with Lyndon Johnson, who was President of the United States, and we arranged a deal for Ali that he didn't have to go into he'd go into the Army, but didn't have to put a uniform on. He'd do some exhibitions and continue his career. And then Jim and I had a meeting, and we discussed the fact that this was a great opportunity to get Ali to accept the deal and to have a meeting with all of the top professional black athletes in the country. That's now known as the Summit something. And they would convince Ali to take the deal. And because Jim was so interested in economic parity for black people, that the closed circuit exhibitors would now be chosen from among all the black athletes. Now this was a great development because in those days professional football players were making very little money, and a closed circuit operator of a big heavyweight fight could make considerable money. So Jim got all of these athletes together. You've seen the picture, but this is the real true story behind it. All of them came to that meeting, and John Wooten is here. He was at that meeting, and he'll tell you about it. And their goal was to convince Ali to take the deal that Lyndon Johnson had offered. And after some of them talked, Ali got up and talked for 3 hours and convinced all of these college graduates, which the players were, that he was right and they were wrong, and what he was doing was the right thing. And so we continued with Ali's career for a few more months, and then he wouldn't step forward, and they convicted him of draft evasion or something like that, and he couldn't fight for 3.5 years. After a federal judge in New York said that that wasn't grounds for taking away his license, we were given the opportunity to promote Ali again, and I formed my company called Top Rank after talking to Jim, who said, by all means, go ahead, everything is going to be great. And Top Rank is now the leading company for promoting boxing, not only in the United States, but all around the world. And that's thanks to Jim Brown and Jim Brown's vision. Jim had the idea, and it was an idea that was so simple, that all people should have the opportunity to succeed in this economy. He established the organization that led to offices all over the country. because unless Americans realize that if we didn't integrate the economic viability of everybody in the United States, we would fail as a country. Now, we haven't done it completely, we haven't done it a lot, but thanks to Jim Brown, it is now, I think, something that we can see happening. Equality, not only at the ballot box, but equality in economic opportunity. And if in this day, hopefully not too far off, we reach that goal, I think so much of the thanks will go to the leadership of the great Jim Brown. Thank you very much.